yesterday, I went on to one of our ads on Doughp's account and I had posted a video of myself talking. It was about Shark Tank and whatnot. And the comments are just exploding about my acne, saying like, oh, does cookie dough cause this? And like, you should fix your face, go get proactive, all these horrible things. And it's Mental Health Awareness Month, so I'm like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Kelsey. Like, thank you so much for your tip. The guy who said, go find proactive or something, thank you so much. We're all about mental health and I hope you have a dope day, and just try to kill it with kindness. But it is so hard.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Sales Enablement Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Paul. That was Kelsey Moreira. Kelsey's the founder and fearless leader at Doughp. That's spelled D-O-U-G-H-P. It's a cookie dough company, and more importantly, a company she started that's committed to reducing the stigmas around mental health and addiction recovery. So this is another one of our conversations this month, May 2021, about mental health challenges within the sales community. That's all part of our effort during this Mental Health Awareness Month to bring the discussion and support out into the open. Now, Kelsey was on the career fast track when she hit bottom. That just happened when she was 6,000 miles away from home. And that's when she committed herself that she had had her last drink. But it's what she did from that point that makes this such a great story. So Kelsey shares a story of her challenges with alcohol, and it's not unusual, and it's a cautionary tale for young professionals, but it all led to her starting her own successful cookie dough company, Doughp, and led to her appearances on Shark Tank, pitching her idea for her company to the panel on national TV. So we dive into talking in this episode about how she's managed through all the stresses of the pandemic and the impacts that's had on her business, how she's managed to keep her balance. And we talk about the work Kelsey is doing to help other companies adopt employee policies that are designed to destigmatize mental health and addiction issues and provide the community and the support that employees need. So again, to all of this and much, much more. But before we get to Kelsey, I want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. And if you subscribe, we'd certainly appreciate it if you could also give us your feedback about how we're doing with a review. So thank you. All right, let's jump into it. Kelsey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, this is a show about sales. Well, this particular episode, we're talking about the mental health challenges associated with sales and business. But this being a show about sales, I think that out of the 900 plus episodes we've done, you have the most unique product that you sell of any that have been on the show.
Oh, that's an honor.
Yeah. So tell us about your business.
Yeah, so I'm the founder and fearless leader of Doughp Cookie Dough. We make edible and bakeable cookie dough, and it is pretty dope. It's D-O-U-G-H-P,
right.
There you go, yeah. So it's like dough with a P on the end. Sometimes people don't get how to pronounce it until I say it out loud too. So it's funny on podcasts, it's the other way around. You need to know how to spell it, or else it's a little confusing on what's in the cookie dough. But there's nothing mysterious in it. It's made just like homemade dough. We just make it safe to eat. And we're actually on a mission around mental health and addiction recovery to try and break the stigmas. So it's, it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, we're going to dive into the mission. But first, let's talk about the good stuff, the cookie dough. So I'm just curious. So how do you ship it?
It is a labor of love to figure out how to ship cold. Yeah,
I can imagine. Yeah.
Fully direct to consumer now. I started the business with our own brick and mortar storefronts. So really like the in-person experience, getting people to come into the store and on, vacations. We were on Pier 39 and in Las Vegas. And then late 2019 started focusing on direct to consumer and have since actually closed both of our storefronts because online was so good for us. So we do, ice packs and insulation, and we have like phases of it as it starts to warm up throughout the year where it gets a little more intense. But luckily it's not ice cream. So we're not quite as intense as like dry ice is needed year round if you're going to ship ice cream. Right. Our dough is safe for 2 weeks at room temperature. So we just need it to stay cooler than the inside of a FedEx truck for delivery, but it doesn't have to be ice cold the whole time.
Okay. Well, mine's scheduled to arrive tomorrow. So I just wanted to let you know.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, you pitched your company on Shark Tank, right?
Yeah. I got on Shark Tank.
Yeah. Tell us about that. I mean, that's fascinating. So how did you audition to get on?
Yeah, I went the normal path. Like, I know nobody in show business. Even the fact that I'm an entrepreneur, like I have no entrepreneurs in my family. It's kind of crazy that I went and did this. So yeah, I've heard that Shark Tank was doing a casting call in San Francisco. An employee of mine actually told me and was like, "Look, I have your cookie dough samples ready. Just come by the pier and pick them up, and you've got to go and audition." And so I went. It was like 6 a.m. in the morning, and I sat on a curb for 3 hours waiting to shoot my shot.
So hundreds of people lined up to do it?
Yeah, about 500 people there that day.
And does everybody get a chance to pitch?
Yes. Yep. Everyone gets a chance to pitch. It's not to the Sharks, obviously.
Right.
These are casting producers and everything, but yeah, everyone gets their chance, and it's a wild journey. You know, there are people in line who are like, "Oh, you have a speech prepared, you know, like a pitch prepared," and I was like, "Yeah, let's work on yours. Tell me about your product." And we're like making it real time for them because I'm like, I think you should have something.
I think you should be prepared. Yeah.
Like let's work on something so you can feel a little natural in there and have some idea of what you're going to say.
So you presented the producers, and then you passed.
Yeah, so it's like a multi-step process.
Right.
I auditioned in May, and then I filmed in September of 2018, and it aired in May of 2019. So it was like a year journey from auditioning to seeing myself on national television.
Yeah.
Very crazy roller coaster. So you do get, the first yes, like they're sitting in the room, like eating the samples, like, "Oh, this is so good." They called over the executive producer, Mindy, like she starts eating it. And, really fun. And, she said, there's a lot of other cookie dough companies even that auditioned that year. But Doughp, what we're doing around mental health that we'll talk about later, they thought that was different enough to come on the show. So many rounds of video submissions, tons of paperwork. I was so new in entrepreneurship. I was like, okay, this legal doc is like 100 pages. This would cost way too much for a lawyer to review. So I just like skimmed it and I'm like, we're just going to sign this thing. Luckily, Shark Tank doesn't do the equity anymore as part of a deal of going on the show. They used to take a portion of your company just to
by
be
virtue
on
of being
the
on
show.
it. Okay, got it.
Yeah. And luckily, that had been removed. I think it was Mark Cuban and Mr. Wonderful were like, if this doesn't get removed, we're out of the show. And so they moved that through. So it seemed all right. And I just said, I want to do it. Let's figure it out.
So tell us about the show. So the show that you're on. And so how much time do you have?
You have as much time as it takes for every shark to go out or to get a deal. So they don't cut you off. There's no, there's no like, hey, you've hit time. It's really just keep going until everybody's been able to make a decision or you got a deal. So for me, I was in there for an hour and 15 minutes and it's an 8-minute segment on TV.
Right.
Yeah, very disorienting. You're just like, how was this that much time? It felt like a blink of an eye. And then it's also wild to see it air. And I'm thinking, wait, where's this or that, that happened? And then they don't show it. So it's a pretty weird experience.
So did you get an investment?
I didn't get a deal in the tank. I knew my numbers like front to back, upwards, down. I was so prepared. I had been flashcarding for weeks leading up to it, walking up and down the streets of SF saying my pitch out loud to anyone that would listen, including the birds. It was like, I was really prepared. So I was super proud of myself. Like Barbara Corcoran said, I was the most sophisticated store owner she'd ever met, which was like, she's met a lot of store owners.
She has. Yeah.
Lots of just amazing accolades about my skills as an operator, but cookie dough is not healthy. So oddly, like the whole episode turned into this like, yeah, but the obesity epidemic. And I'm like, it's dessert. I was like, I'm so confused how we're talking about this. Cause like, of course it's not healthy. Like it's intentionally.
This is not a main course we're pitching to people. Right.
Exactly. So, Doughp is like unabashedly about just digging in, having something taste good. I want the nostalgia of cookie dough. I want it to taste like it tasted when you were eating it at home and not be on both ends, not souped up with a bunch of sugar where it's cookie dough frosting and also not turned into some health product where it's like, tastes like you're eating granola. Like we can have a bowl of granola and then we can have some dessert. So I just, it was really funny to have them go out for that and big kind of like emotional cliff dive for me to have them go out. And it was so many positives of like, you're incredible. When I want to invest, I want to find a great founder, all these amazing things, but cookie dough. And I'm like, this is not what I was expecting, So
fun. It's cookie dough.
Yeah, it was but a really cool experience nonetheless, to get to meet them, tell my story, shared my, journey into sobriety on national television. And that was a real gift.
Well, so let's talk about that because that's one of the things. This is one of our conversations for Mental Health Awareness Month did the business come out of your recovery?
100%. I mean,
Okay.
it would never have happened had I not gotten sober in a couple of phases too. Like, I think just the coasting that was life of like, I got my good corporate job. I'm going to climb this ladder. And, I was abusing alcohol. I had a problem with alcohol. I'd been 10 years working in high tech, started when I was like 16 years old. And
so let's get into that because you started an internship at Intel when you were in high school. And it sounded like they gave you some big responsibilities pretty early on.
Yeah. And, I took it. I wanted it. I was so hungry. I was always a perfectionist and overachiever. I mean, like to the extremes, right? I would like come home crying if I got a B in school. And so my parents would, through the years, have to be like, the opposite of most parents saying, come on, care more. It was like, you're fine. It's going to be okay. Like, don't worry so much. The B is fine. They wanted me to like take a chill pill,
right?
Literally and figuratively. It was like, this is a little much, but I just had a lot of anxiety. And I think jumping into Intel, it fueled that because I was able to take on more and do more and show how great I could be. And so the responsibilities kept climbing and I was 16, 17, 18, making it happen,
I mean, you were traveling on business, right?
Yeah. I started doing business trips at 18.
Wow.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. So tell us what you were going on the business trips to do. I mean, what your role was?
So I was working in like the business client group for a long period of the time. So working on vPro processors, this is lots of business stuff. Being able to go around and talk about, I was running a small business app pack. So we were trying to pitch as part of business client. They did some stuff for small business and pitching this to tablet manufacturers. So a trip to China to go and meet with different OEMs and pitch this app pack that they could add to Intel-based tablets that would be for small businesses. So some sort of like software combo marketing opportunities and, this chance to go around with a VP of the company. It was a really, really neat opportunity. But, I was a couple years after college and you think alcoholism is really easy to pass away in college because you're just like, it's okay. Everyone else is doing
Everyone's
it.
Everyone's drinking, right?
The hospitalizations and the tickets, some of that was like, maybe this isn't happening to everyone, but next weekend it won't. I just always had an excuse.
Well, you ended up in the hospital from binge drinking?
Yeah, twice actually. I'm a small person and I am like, you can't see me if you're listening to this, but I'm like 5'2", 120. And I think I broke 100 pounds in college. So I was always really small, but drank like I was a 6'2", 300-pound dude. And that doesn't last long, just physiologically my body couldn't take it. And so I would end up getting carried out of the party. Police would be there, ambulance called, a couple of instances where that was pretty much the leading factor. So,
well, it sounded like in one of the trips to China, because I was reading something, whether I think it was a transcript to a podcast you've been on, it was pretty rough, right?
Yeah. So this trip in China, to China when I was a couple years after college, and still in the throes of it, I almost missed our flight to leave that day. And the VP that I'm on this trip with, Steve Dahlman, still connected with him on LinkedIn. It's funny all these years later. But, he had to send someone up to my room to come and like knock on the room and try and find me because I wasn't showing up in the lobby like I was supposed to for the flight because I had been out drinking, so heavily the night before. And then, it's another business trip that I finally made the decision to get sober when I was in Barcelona in 2015. So September 2015, first day of a 7-day business trip in Barcelona. What a cool opportunity. I loved this chance to get to travel, but these business trips were always like the worst for me. It was kind of a chance where you're out and nobody else there knows you have a problem. And everybody else is ready to let loose too. So you've got a bunch of drinking buddies and you got nobody there to tell you not to have another one. And so that was just the perfect storm for me. And I landed at like 10:30 in the morning and Marriott's hey, Kelsey, a platinum member, here's your welcome bottle of wine. And I'm like, well, I should have some.
Right. I want this to go away.
Have some. And then, one thing leads to another. Coworkers are at the pool and on. And I came to at 3:30 in the morning in a stranger's apartment and had cheated on a boyfriend of 4 years at the time. And just had one of those, like, another morning apologizing for stuff I didn't remember doing and trying to put the pieces together. And I said, this is it. This is enough. I don't ever want to feel like this.
Right. And this is the thing that struck me about that story. That was, I mean, sort of hitting bottom 6,000 miles from home, a young woman basically by yourself. Their colleagues are there, but still,
Yeah.
I had to be
I mean, in that morning,
hugely,
very by myself.
yeah, hugely frightening.
Yeah.
But then you had the courage to seek out an English language AA meeting in Barcelona. So tell us about that, because I think that's amazing.
Yeah. And it is, I think in some ways that fear factor of like, I could have died, I could have easily died or been taken into some horrible, I'm very
Sure.
small, like I could have just been kidnapped and taken. All sorts of things could have happened. And even what did happen, I'm not, proud about. I wish I had not done that. I convinced the group of colleagues I was with that I knew this other group of guys and I'd be fine. Don't worry about me. I'm going to leave. And I did not know them from Joe. So
Right.
really dangerous situation. I think it just hit me that was like, this is not me. I have so much more to offer the world than this. And I called my grandmother, who's like my best friend, my Nana. We were so close. And over the years, it had been challenging because I was getting letters from her. She was many years sober, I think 20 years sober at that moment. And I had always gotten these letters from her that I'd shove in the drawer because I didn't want to read them, saying that, she really thought I maybe needed to stop drinking. And so she was the first call that morning. And I said, I really want to get sober. I don't want to do this anymore. And she prompted the AA. She said, you should find an AA meeting. And I'm like, how will I do that? I'm in Barcelona. Like my life's falling apart. Do I need to fly home? What should I do? And she said, they have English speaking meetings there, I'm sure. Look it up. You're young, figure out the internet. And so I did. I Googled it and I found a meeting few blocks away, an hour later or something. And I haven't had a drink since. So I'll be 6 years sober this September.
Well, congratulations. So,
Thank you.
So tell me about going into that meeting though. I mean, this is again, just because you're again, so far away from home and
yeah.
Who was there? Was it, expats that live in Barcelona or?
A mix of people, a mix of people. Some on travel who wanted to stay connected into a meeting while they were traveling, right? And then some who do live there, like the gentleman that was running it. His name was Will. I still text him every sober anniversary because I just think it's such an interesting connection that, he was there to lead that meeting that day.
Right.
And it was my first AA meeting. So there's tons of nerves of like, oh God, what am I going into? And like, what's this going to be like? And do I have to tell them all my problems? And, the beautiful thing about AA is you can say as much or as little as you'd like.
Right.
And, I shared that I was, less than 24 hours sober and wanted to try and figure it out. And it's a great community of people, someone stayed afterwards to chat with me about their journey. And, then I had to go through a 6-day business trip in my first 6 days of sobriety. So that was some shit.
That's what I was going to ask. Right. So how'd that feel like then to be thrust back into the situation where there's all these temptations for you, just newly sober?
Yeah.
How'd you manage that to avoid relapsing again?
Very challenging. I found the best path was to not attend the social functions. So, I had a couple of dinners that I just had to be at and went and said I wasn't feeling well, that I just wanted some water. That whole week, maybe one close colleague that I shared, I had a problem that night didn't go well for me. I know you guys didn't see me afterwards, but I'm not going to be drinking anymore. And the others I just needed to play it off that I wasn't feeling well and just kind of kept to myself, went and explored the city a bit, in the evenings and stuff, instead of going to some function if I could pass on it, just to get out, see some arts. I saw, some of the Gaudi stuff. So it was just, let's go find myself doing something else that wasn't including alcohol.
Yeah. And at that time, the colleagues maybe that, knew you from the office and so on, I mean, any sense at all on their part that, you were having these struggles with alcohol?
No, not really. There's a couple of close ones that I got sent home one day from Intel because I reeked of alcohol. I had been drinking, on a Sunday and came into work Monday. And, he was like, I think you need to go home. And so those were like really jarring, where I had so seldom let my problems cross over into work, and missing work from being too hungover. Those bosses still to this day don't really know that that's why I missed work that day, but too hungover and had to call out a couple of times. But I was such an overachiever when I was there. It's like this high functioning, it would never be a problem. It's like, oh, of course she can take that day off. Every other day is like 8 squished into 1. So, it was very hard for them when I did come out that I was getting sober and started to get more public about it. And it was like, oh, I didn't know you had a problem. You were so much fun, lots of like, but it was so fun when you're drinking. And that's the thing about alcoholism is like, it seems fun to everyone else for a while. And then you have this close knit group of like your parents and your loved one, your significant other who have just been like battered with all of these nights that they've had to pick up the pieces for you and help you out. And the friends who had to carry you home each time or clean up your, throw up in their car or whatever it is. So
hold your hair.
It's like this immediate circle that feels the pain and the others are like, but you were a blast. Like, what do you mean? So it's a hard part about our society because we just think that that's the way we engage and that's the way we hang out and need to bond. And in sobriety, it's pretty freaking awesome. I found that I have even closer relationships, more meaningful relationships, not being focused around alcohol.
And your parents also have problems with alcohol?
Yeah, my mom is now 4 years sober, so
congratulations.
She got sober a year after me. And I think it's one of the things I say about vulnerability breeds vulnerability. Like my decision to be able to come out and say, I have a problem and I need to get sober, broke that wall down for my mom to be able to talk to me and say, I know that my drinking hasn't been okay and I have a problem and I need to stop. So nice recognition on that end. And then my Nana, who I mentioned was sober 20 years. This is my dad's mother. She passed away just after I turned 1 year sober. So she gave me the diamond heart necklace that my papa had given her for her first year of sobriety in her final letter to me when she passed. So lots of lovely alcoholism in our family that is thankfully solved now. We're either, passed away sober or still sober now. So, it is a genetic thing at its core that I think I was predisposed to have a problem with it. There's just this perfect mix that hit for me. My brother never really cared for alcohol much, he's just have one and be done and not much of a party animal, more of a reserved kind of guy. And and it was fine for him through his life. And I've just have been on that other extreme.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about how that then led to Doughp. So, had baking sort of been a passion or?
Yeah, I love to bake when I was young. And my mom, my Nana, my stepmom, all great, not only chefs, but bakers. They love to make regular food too. I just was always can we just make the cookies? Let's skip the dinner thing. Can we just do the dessert together? And
that's what I would vote for, but yes.
Right. Yeah. We had this cookbook called the Big Giant Cookie Book. And I would, every time my mom's we can make anything today. What do you want to make? I'm get the cookie book. Let's stop messing around. I just want to make some new cookie recipes. But with Intel and alcohol, just the corporate life and drinking, I lost all those hobbies, all the side things. I wasn't really running anymore, wasn't baking, wasn't doing yoga. I had all these little things I used to do in the past that I kind of let go of. And getting sober was this big re-exploration of who am I? I remember being holy hell, I have no hobbies. What do I do? And now not drinking, you got a lot of time. So it was just, let's go back to other things. I tried painting again, pottery. I'm terrible at gardening. That was not going to happen. But being in the kitchen was just really that special thing for me. I found baking is so precise. You're measuring everything off, and it's sort of a meditation for me. I really felt at peace in the kitchen and started to bring in those baked goods into the office, and slowly but surely getting those nudges of hey, this is really good. You should sell this. You should. And I'm sell this? I could start my own company. I just I got no entrepreneurs, and in my family, I never thought about I could make my own business. And that kind of spurred that first inkling of I could do something for me.
Well, the thing that was interesting though, so what was the decision about selling dough versus cookies?
Yeah. It was a big jump, right? Intel moved me down to San Francisco for a new job inside the company. So
and you were
I went
previously in the Sacramento area, just so people know.
Yeah, grew up in Sacramento. I was actually in Oregon when I got sober. So Intel moved me around. I was in the Arizona campus during college and then moved up to Oregon. They've got a big headquarters up there outside of Portland. And, the geographical relocation when you get sober is welcomed. I wanted a new, fresh start. And in SF, I made some amazing friends who got to only ever know this Kelsey, who I am today, and not have those sort of tainted memories of what had happened through my drinking years. So kind of a nice, fresh start. And I was attempting to be a vegan, early sobriety. I was less than a year sober when I moved to SF, and I was let's try everything. I wasn't having coffee. I wasn't having alcohol. I wasn't having, just all of it. So I tried veganism. I love butter way too much. So that lasted not long. So my cooking,
I'm with you on that one.
Right. Though I wasn't using eggs anymore, I was still using butter. And so cookie recipes, which like as many people, right, sneaking those bites of cookie dough before you bake it, I started to realize like, I don't have eggs in this anymore. So I'd save half of it in a bowl in the fridge and then bake half into cookies. And I was eating it through the week and it just struck. I was like, this could be my thing. This is really unique. I knew sure, people think my cakes look cool or cupcakes are nice. But there's so many world-renowned pastry chefs in SF. So I'd kind of put it to the side as like, that's not realistic for me. But this, I said, this is unique. And it's very me. It's like, it's messy, it's imperfect, it's cookie dough in a pint. It doesn't have to like look beautiful. And I love that, it's got to be kind of real.
Yeah. So, but the idea to make it a business. And so what was sort of the say, like, God, I can make a go of this. I mean, this is, because a lot of cookie companies or cookie related companies sort of come and go. I mean, we had the cupcake craze. We had, Mrs. Fields sort of disappeared, which was, dating myself a little bit, but those were,
it's good. Okay. And Miss Fields, she's trying to make a comeback on direct to consumer. You can you can order some online now. So they're seeing that that's a trend. Yeah. It's, I think for me, I didn't really know how big Doughp would become. I didn't know it would be what it is today. And like, we've served more than 350,000 people cookie dough. Like that's wild. Mm-hmm. When I started it, I said, I love the feeling of watching someone eat what I've made and like try a bite and light up and say how good it is. And having my own business doing that means I could probably see like 100 people a day doing that. I really had this micro goal of like, can I make 100 people happy?
Right.
Let's do it. Like, let's see it. And I had my sabbatical from Intel. So I had 10 weeks paid. And I had planned this trip around the world that I was going to take. But in February, I got this idea. And in April, my sabbatical was starting. And I said, forget the trip. Like I can use 10 weeks to see if this could be a real business, and had no insights about the food industry whatsoever, right? Like I've been working in tech. Like what do I know other than I like to eat desserts? What do I know about operating a dessert company? So tons of learnings. I just was never afraid to ask questions, started to reach out into the community, found a commercial kitchen in Oakland and made 100 pounds of cookie dough, got a $500 cart built at a wood shop in Soma in San Francisco. And that was going to be my cookie dough cart. And I took it to Dolores Park. My mom and my stepdad came to help and some of my friends, and sold out in 3 hours, like 100 pounds of cookie dough gone. And I said, this is really something. Let's keep going, and just started to build the business
eating
from there.
it on the spot, I imagine, in the park.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, and it was 2017. So there were lots of people walking by, and I'm like, edible cookie dough, come try. And, of course, the questions of like, someone's literally like, okay, I've never had edibles. Like, how much should I have? I'm thinking like, okay, no, sugar highs only. It's not edible like that. So in San Francisco, there needed to be some clarity in my sales message. But yeah.
Fascinating stuff. And I think that it seems, as I think about it, part of the allure is the fact that, eating dough is sort of dangerous, right?
Yeah. You can usually, you're getting any regular Nestle or cookie dough in the store, or you're making it at home. It's got eggs in it and raw flour. So we heat treat all the flour, and then we don't use the eggs. So it's our recipe is bakeable and able to be eaten raw.
Yeah. Well,
it's awesome.
I'm going to be eating it raw. I love cookie dough. So, nice. But yeah, I'm one of the people always worried about the eggs and so on. So I want to talk a little bit about what's happened sort of the last year. I mean, you talked about, you sort of pivoted your business away from the storefronts, but it had to have been incredibly stressful. And for, people that are sober and in recovery is the last year presented a lot of unique challenges that we didn't anticipate. So I was just wondering how you navigated that.
Yeah, incredibly challenging. And I actually met a few people throughout the year who had just gotten sober, in March or something. And it's like, that is a challenge, or had to realize they needed to get sober as the year went on, because the pandemic ended up perpetuating some issues with alcohol or other substances. And it was very challenging. We went from 30 boxes a month in November of 19 to 3,000 a week in April of 2020. So just on the operations side, and like, thank the stars for my husband who joined the company in November of 19. He's very ops and finance focused. And so he really helped us through this transition. But the two of us were like, full heads down on like operation survival. Like, how are we going to manage the scale and like make it happen? And, we made a not so great decision with the initial rollout for our warehouse planning, and really intense, like I really had a serious challenge in like maintaining my mental health through that time.
Right.
So I look at it like a mental health toolbox. I've got like 6 things that I know can help keep me like on the straight and narrow and feeling good. So like, journaling, having tea before bed at night, reading before bed, yoga is one of them, running, and calling a friend, or calling my parents. I'm notorious for just like heads down in work and forgetting to reach out. So it's like all of those things cannot happen every day because I'm not, amazing and perfect and the best of the best every day. But like, can I get half of them? Can I get like 2 of them? So I just had to constantly kind of keep that front of mind of like, okay, feeling really stressed out. Like, what of the things have I done today? What can I pull out from my toolbox and like make it happen today? Because it was really challenging. And I ended up, poignant discussion around mental health, ended up having a pretty severe like breakout in my face. Your body like manifests stress in different ways, whether it's with your gut or through acne. And so I had this horrible breakout, and I'm such a like, just love yourself for who you are, and I don't get down on my looks or anything. And just very like yesterday, I went on to one of our ads on Doughp's account, and I had posted a video of myself talking. It was about Shark Tank and whatnot. And the comments are just exploding about my acne, saying like, oh, does cookie dough cause this? And like, you should fix your face, go get proactive, all these horrible things. And it's Mental Health Awareness Month, so I'm like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Kelsey. Like, thank you so much for your tip. The guy who said, go find Proactive or something, thank you so much. We're all about mental health, and I hope you have a dope day, and just try to kill it with kindness. But it is so hard. It's like the stress of running a business is really intense, and it has, for me, manifested in different ways. And I'm on the up and up. It's healing now, but it was a very hard year, and emotionally like a roller coaster of like, will my livelihood make it through or not? Like, this is my baby. Doughp is my whole life. And you really have these scary moments of like, are we going to be okay? And having to shut the store down in October, I poured blood, sweat, and tears into opening that store. And it was the business decision to close it down. It was the right decision, but it was really hard. It was really sad. I loved it.
Well, just not only the storefront, but also it affects the lives of the people that work there. And
the human element is really a toll, like really, really hard.
So have any of those people been able to come back now that...
We do have one of our employees who is the general manager at the store. She's still the recipe developer for Doughp. Okay. So Iggy and I work together on all the seasonal flavors. And then we hooked her up with our fulfillment center. So she also works there helping to pack the Doughp boxes. So
Right.
Yeah.
So this idea of the toolbox, I think, is really, really useful. Was that come out of AA, or where'd you come up with that?
My own survival methods. Yeah, no, not out of AA. Just, and AA was an amazing tool for me. I went pretty much every day for the first 6 months, and then started to go a little bit less frequently, maybe like once a month. And now I tend to go just on my sober birthdays. Like, thanks to the pandemic, my original meeting group in Oregon is doing virtual meetings, so I can jump in on my anniversaries and just check in and say hi. So I've found that, these toolbox of sort of like wellness things, like what am I doing for my overall wellness and mental health, have just been what I really used to carry me through. And now so much of my life is about recovery and like recovering out loud and helping to share that with other people. So I find that that's a really nice additional tool for me, is just this reminder that like my continuance on this path is helping other people. And that's really, really cool.
Well, I gravitate to the idea of the toolbox just because, I think little habits like that are so powerful. And to your point is, it's not about perfection. If you get 2 of them if you have 6 things, you get to 2 of them, you get 3 of them in a day. You just remember. I think that's very powerful. I like that.
It's like responsible goal setting. When you go out and you're like, I'm going to eat a kale salad every day this week. And then if you miss one day, you're like, I failed.
So
funny
horrible,
example.
right?
But yeah, you really can get down on yourself if you feel like you just failed because you set such a high bar, versus saying, for example, I wasn't able to do yoga any morning last week. Just didn't pull it off. Either meeting starting early or just too freaking tired to do it. And I said this week, I told I'm like, I'm not going to say, I'm going to do it every day this week. I want to do it 2 days this week. And then I ended up doing it 4. That's awesome. So you get the opposite end of feeling like really good that you did have a win, instead of setting yourself up for perfection and then saying, to hell with it, it didn't work out. So now I feel, it's a steadier path to try again next week.
And you brought the part about social media. And so I'm sort of curious, is Yeah, because it can be so destructive.
Mhm.
Yeah, do you find yourself using it differently after you've been sober than before?
I mean, I think by way of sobriety giving me so much more self-confidence, like
Hmm.
this ability to say I really love myself and
Right.
I don't feel the need to constantly compare. And I think when I was still drinking, the my use of social media was the scrolling and comparing. You're just going through
Hmm.
this feed saying like, "Oh, I wish I was on that vacation," or "I wish my body
Right.
looked like that," or "I could never wear a shirt like that," or now I just wear whatever I want. I don't bother with, I don't put face makeup on to cover my scarring or anything. I just want to be me, and that's kind of a beautiful thing that gave me that sobriety gave me. And so my use of social media is just more how can I help other people too. I think I
Right.
found LinkedIn over the last year as a really great platform for me. I was always not going to be the girl that's like, "Hey, let me tell you about my skincare routine," on Instagram or something. I always felt a little weird, like sharing
Right.
too much on Instagram. And LinkedIn's been really cool. I've grown like quite a little following there, and who want to hear how it's going on this entrepreneurial journey.
Right.
Very open and authentic when things are really not working, and like celebrating the awesome stuff when things are. So it's nice to kind of give people some insight. And, I've found over the last 4 years, like I have amassed an incredible amount of information about being an entrepreneur and like what it
Hmm.
means to run a business like this. And it's really nice to be able to share that with others. So, entrepreneurs reach out that are like, "Hey, can you spare 30 minutes, 15 minutes to talk to me about my business?" And I love it. I love kind of deep diving on different people's problems. And social media has given me a way to be a beacon for that, to say,
Right.
"I'm here, I can help."
Well, I think in recovery too, you said you've discovered yourself, that had been hidden for so long. Is That's hugely powerful as a
Yeah.
tool, right? Just to be yourself. For people in sales or listening to this, if you're covering up, if you're struggling with mental health issue of some sort, and it's not the best you that's out there,
Yeah.
there's a real incentive to find that.
It's like unlocking a superpower, Like
Hmm.
getting sober was like this shedding of all this, BS and like stuff that was covering me. And then I got to like really grow from that moment. And it's hard when you're in it, because I know the feeling when I decided I need to get sober, had ruined that relationship of 4 years. Everything felt like it was blowing up. I had called my dad and said, "My life's over. This is just feels like the
Right.
end." And it was totally like the beginning. And it sounds super cheesy, but it was really like the start of all the awesome stuff that's come true in my life since. And it's challenging to see that when you're in it, but there's just so much amazing stuff to happen when you stop filling your brain with all this nonsense,
Hmm.
filling your body with it, and not being able to see who you really are and who you really can be in the world.
Yeah, and the idea of the superpower coming out is sort of a common theme with people I've spoken to that have be- been open, started to be open about their sobriety and their recovery, and yeah, almost to a person, they all say the same thing. It's like, wow, just performing at levels I never was able to perform at before, much more balanced in my life, family life, work life, so on.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
transformation.
so much more on time, whether you're drinking or you're hung over and recovering from drinking,
Right.
it's a lot of wasted time. And so in sobriety, it just became like, that's why I was like, what do I do with all this time? Started baking, because it was
Mm,
like, you just have a lot of extra. I was like, there are always this many hours in a day? Has it always been like this? Because it felt like you just really got a whole new
right.
mix. And it's a chance to, yeah, figure out what you want to do with it. So people used to say like, "Are you going to tell investors that you're sober?" I'm like, "Yeah, I
Mm.
can't wait to tell them." Like they're going to think it's awesome, Like I hope they realize that it just means I'm more present and more focused for the hard things that are going to come, and able to, keep a level head and make the best decisions I can as I go through it.
Well, tell us about what you support through Dope in terms of mental health initiatives and so on.
Yeah. So we formed the Doughp for Hope initiative inside the company. And this was in 2017. It was my 2-year sobriety anniversary. We're like, going on 4 months into the business or something. And I was getting a kiosk on Market Street. And on my 2-year sobriety anniversary was the grand opening of this kiosk. And so I put on our Facebook page and said, "If you say it's dope to be sober at checkout, you'll get 20% off." And we
Hmm.
started getting all these messages into the Dope Instagram and Facebook
Right.
inbox saying, "Hey, I'm sober. Like, do you have any good meetings that you like in the city? Someone newly sober, or like,
Right.
I want to get sober. Do you have any ideas?" Someone that's, many years sober saying they hadn't shared it publicly before, and that it was really cool
Right.
to see me sharing. And I just had this big like wake up call of like, I feel like people really want to talk about this. It seems
Hmm.
like if they're willing and interested in writing a cookie dough company who just waved a little flag and said, hey, I'm sober, man, that must be like, there must not be enough people that they know in their circle to reach out to for advice or tips or to feel not alone. And so the Doughp for Hope initiative is to try and break the stigma around mental health and addiction recovery, trying to make people feel less alone in what they're going through and less scared to talk about it and to talk about what's really happening in our lives. So we have a Doughp for Hope pledge on our website for customers to sign, says you'll be there for a friend when they need you and that you'll reach out if you need help. We do mental health Mondays, so fun like burst of joy on your Instagram feed on Monday mornings and through a monthly email that we do as well. And then inside our company and to other employers, lots of work around mental health policies and what you can do to allow your employees to bring their full selves to work. So we offer mental health days. We subsidize mental health care for our employees. We do employee donation matching to nonprofits that work in the space. And then Doughp themselves donate. So the last piece is kind of like the financial component. And for every single purchase, we donate 1% of our sales. All sales across the whole company to a nonprofit that works in the space. And for 2021, it's She Recovers Foundation, which is for women inner-seeking recovery.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
it's a great story. It's a great story. Yeah, I mean, congratulations on all you've accomplished so far. I mean, that's from Barcelona, right? I mean, it's just when I was reading about that, I was like, holy cow.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. Sometimes I have to pinch myself. I'm like, is this real? And it's such a joy to, I mean, I talk about cookie dough, mental health, and addiction recovery every day. That is super cool. And it's an awesome gift. It's really, really nice. And it feels like what we're talking about is so needed in the world, and the pandemic accelerated that to the next level. You know, if you weren't already thinking about your mental health, you probably are now. Used to have some folks say, you know, it's really nice what you're doing for people with mental illness. And it's like, no, it's actually for everybody. And now post-pandemic, like I think people get that, like mental health is like,
need it, right?
We are all in this. So it doesn't feel as siloed a topic anymore. It's really like across the board. And like I mentioned, employers interested in understanding this. So I'm working on a certification process for businesses to be able to be a certified M Corp or something similar. So this is in the works right now. But yeah, something to really help give these guidelines to employers that want to make a change, but maybe don't know how to make it so in their place.
And is there some place people can go and get information about this?
Coming soon.
Okay.
I'm very excited about it. So if anyone's hearing it that is interested or works in the space, you know, we were starting to build, I've kind of collected a bit of a coalition. So we've got like 4 different organizations looking to work with me on this. And if there's other companies that are interested or individuals that are advocates in the space, I'd love to connect. I'm Kelsey at Doughp.com.
Excellent. And on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And on LinkedIn, of course. Yes. Great place. And I'm sure as we keep going forward, we're looking to do a pilot in September. So I'll probably be sharing more about it on LinkedIn as we go forward. Okay.
Well, as you get more into it, we'd love to have you come back and talk more about it.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Thank you. Well, Kelsey, thank you so much for joining me. And people, go to Doughp.com and buy some cookie dough.
It's a good move. It'll make you happy.
It'll make you happy. Well, I'm anticipating mine coming. So
awesome.
Yeah. Great. All right. Kelsey, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay, friends, that's it for this episode. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I'm so grateful for your support of the show. I want to thank my guest, Kelsey Moreira, for sharing her insights and her story with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, Sales Enablement with Andy Paul, on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you could also leave us a rating or a review and let us know how we're doing, but we'd appreciate that. You can do all that on your phone in less than a minute as soon as this episode is over. So thank you for your help. And as always, thank you so much for investing your time with me today. Until next time, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.